a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, we have Yogi Zorananda. He is unbelievable. We met on a Union of the Unwanted spiritual show, which I am going to be linking down in the show notes, as well as Alt Media United and a few other things that reference the conversation, guys. So we talk about his book, Future Life Progression, which will also be located down in the show notes. His podcast, RenegadeYogiPodcast, which a good friend of ours, Mark Steves, kind of encouraged him to start, so we're all grateful for Mark. He's out there fighting the good fight, and this is one of the most incredible conversations, guys. So Yogi talks about his DMT experiences, which are fascinating, also his yoga and what he does as his practice. So this is a remarkable conversation with an interesting fella. You guys are really, really going to enjoy this. So if you would like to check out our affiliate links down there for Food Forced Abundance, make sure that you get your freedom from fear on, as well as if you want to start your own podcast. The Libsyn link is down there. That's who I host through, so y'all check that out. And then if you are going to buy anything on Amazon, a book, Future Life Progression, perhaps, Yogi's book, then do it through the affiliate link that I've got located down in the show notes. It helps the show. Also, if you would like to expand your experience with us here on Expanding Reality, you can do so at expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is going to be where links to Rokfin for our premium content, as well as on our website, and also all the socials, merchandise, all that kind of good stuff is located there, guys. So without any further ado, let's give it up for Yogi Zorananda. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the show, it is Yogi Zorananda. He is here hanging out, and we are extremely excited. You and I met on a Union of the Unwanted, and it had Christopher the Astro Medium, Amy Leier, and we were all hanging out, having an awesome time. And you stuck out, man, like crazy. And so I definitely wanted to have you by and invite you into our house to have a chat with us. So, Yogi, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's in the evening for me, and I'm on a bit of a run. This is my 5th podcast in the last week and a half. Jeez. Just like the whole community around like what Mark Steves is doing and a few others. I've been invited onto just many shows, and so I'm just super excited to be here because we did plan to do something back in November, and just understanding how, things can change, and, there's a necessary timing for things. And so when you texted me last week to be like, yep, I'm ready, let's do it. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is great.
It's that divine timing thing. And I hated that. I stacked for the holidays and I was like, God damn it, dude. And so I overbooked, and there's 4 Christmases we were involved with, and one of them slipped my mind. So I was like, great. Anyway, so thank you for being gracious, but I agree with you. It's this divine timing thing. That's how this always works out. And anytime I want to say, there's a podcast that we all love, and I love them. I'm not going to say who it is because of those people that are going to take me the wrong way, but they canceled on me 6 times in a row. Hey, all right, come on. I was like, cool, yeah, let's do this. And they canceled. And then he right back, hey, dude, come on. But what was so great about it is it set up to be one of the coolest conversations I've ever had. And had it been any of the other 5 times, that we didn't, air quotes, didn't make it happen, it wouldn't have been the same. So I'm right there with you, dude. I know this is going to be amazing. I can't wait. Like I said, you're incredible. So do me a favor, for the audience that doesn't know too much about you, just let us know a little bit about who you are, brother.
Yeah. So essentially, I'm a yogi, which means that I'm a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher and a overall yoga practitioner, where it's something that is a part of my daily life in some way. If it's not like the traditional kind of like yoga class asana practice. It's me applying yoga philosophy just throughout my day, and considering it a lifestyle that I carry with me day in and day out. Then on just like the normal side, I'm also just a regular dude. I live in a city just like everyone else, and I have a day job, and that's what takes care of my bills and allows me to have the place that I have. And my side hobbies are music and a podcast that I have. So I've really been focusing in on music recently. I'm working on my 4th album, and this one is particularly special to me because I'm doing a lot of vocal training. So I'm going to be singing on it for the first time. And I grew up playing guitar. So I've been a guitarist since I was like 15. So that's, holy shit, that's like 19 years, almost 18 years.
It's been a minute.
And so I'm just finding that life is particularly exciting amidst everything that's happening in the world, and that I've honed in on focusing on a few different things in my life that are a part of my passions and a part of my career. And the podcast one is really interesting because it's how I met you, and it's how I met like this whole community that would not have happened if a few different synchronicities didn't happen, with writing my book, meeting Mark Steves, and then Mark actually encouraging me to start my podcast. Cause I was like, I had in my mind that it was going to be in like 2 years from now, right? I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to wait. And then Mark's like, no, man, it's way easier than you think. Just start it now. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing it.
I got to say this though about your Renegade Yogi podcast, man. I checked it out, and your videos, dude, the way that you have your guests. Okay. This is like the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. So for the audio only audience, check out the video link in the show notes. I'm going to put a clip from the video up here and show exactly how you do this with the 2 chairs side by side, small table so set, but then it's a remote guest. And so you have a picture over, the shot that's them as their Zoom call. I love it as your remote call. It's a brilliant thing. It's just kind of floating on the chair there, and I enjoy the hell out of it. Did you have plans to like decorate it or anything for the holidays, depending,
No. So lately I kind of strayed away from that just because of how much work is involved. But typically that's just how I put it up, so that it just feels like that person is there, right? So it's not just like, oh, you're looking at a Zoom call. It's like, oh, there's a guest in that place. So thanks. That's cool.
The thing about it is it's so simple. It's one of those things that everyone kicks themselves in the nuts for not thinking of, but it's so brilliant because it's so sweet. It is. It's like you're there hanging out with the Zoom call in a chair next to you. It's, again, dude, I just thought it was a very nice touch. It just shows your attention to detail and the work that you put into the experiencer of people receiving your message. So thanks again, dude. I appreciate it. So how did Mark talk you in? Mark Steves, good friend. We love that guy. We have been on each other's shows. Awesome, dude. I agree with you. This whole network is just insane. The whole Alt Media United network, which I will be linking in the show notes, so you guys go check that out. We're a part of that. Very, very cool shit. So tell me, how did he talk you into this?
So I think he was already kind of planning the Alt Media United kind of collective, and I think he was at the beginning of it. And so I think I was one of the kind of first people that he wanted kind of to join in on it. And obviously, he had a whole bunch of other people, but because I did Sam's Zero show, then I did his show, and then we just like connected really well, and a friendship just started to grow out of our conversations. That it just felt natural for him to extend that invite, and to get me a part of it. So it was really that simple. And he also coined the name of my podcast, right? So he actually just like called me a renegade yogi one day on one of the episodes, and that just stuck with me. And I'm like, holy shit, that's a great name. And so I just thought, yeah, Renegade Yogi Podcast. Yeah,
it's perfect, dude, and ripe. I mean, I love it. It all works, man. It all totally works. So what is your favorite part about podcasting? I'm just curious about what you think of it as somebody just getting into it. What's something that like you love about it, and what's something that's harder than you thought it would be?
Yeah, what I love is the conversations and the opportunity to meet new people. So, and what kind of opportunities just come out of that as well, with like meeting yourself and meeting Lindsay and several others. So I really love the camaraderie of all of that, and how there's obviously like a sense of community that's growing. The challenging thing is just the timing of everything like for me, I'm just like really bad at consistency. So I'll like write down on my board that I'm doing 2 episodes a week, and then like a week and a half will go by and I'm like, oh fuck, okay, I need to like, I need to record stuff, and I need to like reach out to people. So it's the accountability part of that responsibility for me. And I'm feeling like I've got a handle of it, like I uploaded an episode yesterday. I recorded an episode as well. So I have the next one coming out for Wednesday. And right now I'm just doing solo episodes of a particular kind of like yoga philosophy. And then I have like a guest lined up for Saturday. And, then the next part is going to kind of kick in where I start reaching out to people and start asking them to be on guests. And what I find is like, yeah, most people are like, yeah, man, I'd love to, let's do it. Right. So, yeah. And then there's also just like personal situational things. Like, I have a big, Pyrenees dog that doesn't really like people coming into my house. So there's a bit of a limiting factor of like, okay, if I have like in-person guests, I have to like consider that. Zoom guests are fine, obviously, because I can work around the technology, and he can just kind of sit here with me like he is now. He's kind of whining a bit, but
you can't even hear him, dude. That's a good mic.
Great,
you're good.
Great.
Yeah. It's awesome. And I'm just grateful that you're having fun with it. And that's the thing, right? Like the best thing about podcasting is you could do anything you want. The worst part about it is you could do anything you want. So really like finding out what your niche is and going where, as long as you just are quiet and you point your feet downstream, shit just pops up, man. Like you said, these connections, and it just leads to these incredible, incredible connections in bigger ways that you never would have predicted. It's awesome, man. So welcome to it, brother. I'm grateful you're doing it, dude. I think it's cool, and you're doing great.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your book, Future Life Progression. I love this. Please tell me about your book.
So it is a manual that details a particular meditation that I say created, but I don't really like saying the word created. I just curated techniques and methods in a more streamlined way of bringing your attention into your heart, and from the space in your heart, navigating its realm to contact your future self. And each chapter goes into exercises and meditations that builds into the eventual meeting of your future self in that realm. So, and interwoven through that are kind of like philosophies that I've learned and insights that I've gained over the last 12 years of being a yoga and meditation teacher, and then stories of psychedelic experiences and dreams and other phenomenal experiences I've had throughout my life. And then the end of it is a theory that I have about DMT and endogenous DMT. And so it's really is not only this like methodology of this meditation, it's also this kind of like life theory that I have of why we are like here as human beings, and you know, what does that mean, and how do we go forward advancing ourselves amidst, you know, the seemingly chaos of our world, right? So yeah, I would say that's the bulk of it in a paragraph.
In a paragraph. It's beautifully said, man. I appreciate it. And of course, we're going to link this down in the show notes and all the ways to find you. So guys, definitely check my buddy out. He's amazing. So I did want to ask you about the future self thing. So what in your mind is when we say future self, what does that mean?
It's actually quite simple. So it is all centered around your heart. Okay. So right now, your heart is beating, and you can bring your perception of it and you can bring attention to it by its like four most noticeable quality of the heartbeat. And the heartbeat is facilitated by the circulation of our body, and then also its own electromagnetic field. And we know this, like it's now kind of scientifically proven that there's this energy to it that is measurable. So that energy is not bound by time, right? Because we can't see it, it's elusive to space. And so it enters into time as one duration of past, present, future. And so our heartbeat right now is actually interacting with the heartbeats of our past.
Damn.
And interacting with the heartbeats of our future. So think of it this way. So rather than immediately trying to project your mind into like far, far, far future, right? Just think of tomorrow. Okay. So for any of you listening to this, tomorrow or the next day, you're going to think about this episode, right? So when it's tomorrow, you're going to be thinking about the past. So that means right now, your tomorrow is thinking about you right now. So that's all connected through the heart. Even though that seems kind of convoluted, it's actually quite simple when you allow yourself to be in the place of your heart, to feel that field and how it interacts with all the other fields of your own hearts. And so what this meditation does is it helps navigate through that energetic field. So then you can tune to a version of yourself and tune to the heart of that version of yourself and come in contact with it and to receive information and guidance from it.
That's incredible. So this is what the idea of like spirit guides are. And we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, that your spirit guides are just your higher version of you, like the you really know you can be. And it's there. It's a potentiality. And so therefore it exists. And so therefore you're living it. And that's what you're really calling upon whenever you do exercises like this. And I like the way of visualizing this, because a lot of people don't even take this sort of action with anything, let alone picturing themselves, putting themselves in a higher perspective to align with that version of themselves. Because this is the big secret to all of this. You don't change anything outside of you. You change you, and the outside world is a mirror to you, of you. Mm-hmm. So this is the secret to all of this shit. But what I love is you have practical applications for this, and you lay it out in a very creative, very honest way, which is great. A lot of this stuff, and let's just be honest, can turn a lot of people off as far as it's like woo-woo and about all of this. So you have practical ways that get actual results that tie in traditional practices, which are brilliant. Like I said, the way that you go about it's perfect, dude. So I did want to ask, because we've also talked about here about like, this isn't only measurable with like EMF meters and stuff here now about the electromagnetic element to your heart, but also the idea is practical whenever you apply it to quantum physics in the way of quantum entanglement. So the idea that one particle is affected, the other one is affected. So if everything's just particles, even across air quotes time, then if one is affected, like what you're talking about, you're tapping into that. You're bringing those beats here. They're the same beat. It's beating at the same time. You're just the one moving or progressing through this experience from that perspective. So I dig the shit out of it, dude. So do you think that there's anything to the idea that you can heal past traumas by healing yourself now in any version of yourself in any reality?
Yeah. I have an exercise that I call retrieval that came about from a fairly traumatic experience that happened to myself, where I cut my wrist open while working, and it was pretty gnarly and pretty bad. Like, I watched myself do it. And so the week after this accident, I was getting pretty strong flashbacks of it. So like kind of borderline PTSD, but not like extreme PTSD, but enough to be uncomfortable, where if I'm just kind of at work or I'm doing something and I'm suddenly placed back in that whole event and I'm watching myself do it over and over and over again. Where when I went into meditation one day and I went into my heart and I just sat in that space, I suddenly received guidance on what to do with those flashbacks. And what my heart guided me into was this exercise of bringing the past experience up into the forefront of my mind, but not going into it, like not like being myself in it and reliving it. I was watching it, and my heart told me the energy in the story is what keeps the image and keeps the trauma going. So you need to take the energy back from the story. And what I was guided to visualize is when I inhaled, that this like golden kind of like shimmering light was coming out of the story and out of the images and back into my heart. And then the guidance told me, yeah, do this every day for a week and you'll see that it'll be gone. And lo and behold, all of those flashbacks were gone. And so that doesn't mean that I don't have the capability of remembering it, because obviously I do. I can bring it back whenever I want. But now the potency of it is gone. The cyclical patterning of that energy being in it is gone. And that's what inspired me to then use that as an exercise within the book. And what I found is when I started to do that afterwards, that my heart would just bring up random things. That the heart would be like, oh, look at this one. Oh, look at this one. Look at this thing from your childhood. Look at this thing from, however many years ago. And what I found is that that kind of like random bringing up was a way for the heart to deal with trauma in a safe container, where it's not in the confine of your kind of in your brain in this like compartmentalized sense, where there's a lot of struggle around how to cope with the images and like the flashbacks and the stories, right? That when I was leading monthly workshops and like monthly meditations, people would ask me, well, if you're bringing up this traumatic experience and you're bringing the energy into your heart, aren't you just bringing like negative energy into your heart? And the simplest thing was like, no, because you are converting it from this negative sense back into its original form. And that's why I call it retrieval. You're retrieving the original essence of the energy that is your heart. And so within your heart, it doesn't have a bias of what's positive and negative. It just sees everything as this energy. And so it gladly brings it back to itself and kind of heals it from a fractured state to a now more whole state, right?
Just by reinterpreting it from your now higher perspective. You just see it, you take that power back, or that essence of what was given over by you in that moment, and then now it just stopped reoccurring. That's fascinating, man.
Mm-hmm.
So you were just presented with other traumas that you needed to address, just one after another, until you went through them. Was there ever a stopping point? Like, did it ever just kind of die off? Like, all right, you've gone through the list, you're good.
Yeah, essentially that's kind of how I felt what happened, because the more and more I was doing these meditations of going to my heart, there was new levels that I entered into. And so the next level, there wasn't this need for examining all the traumas. Now it was exploring a whole new state of being. And so there is this like kind of critical mass of integration, I think, that occurs when you've done enough healing, that the state of integration now holds itself whole, so that when you enter into the next level of like meditative consciousness and, you know, the realm within your heart, that your heart is intuitively guiding you deeper and deeper, and wants to show you more and more of, you know, what compassion and empathy and unconditional love is, beyond just the words that they are, right?
Do you think that this way is for everyone, or do you think that there are different ways that we all are presented with opportunities to transmute either traumas or new opportunities to learn more about ourselves or our place, our role here, our relationship to the experience? Do you think that your path is something that anyone can pick, and that's something that you recommend, or do you think that it's going to be different for everybody?
I honestly think it's going to be different for everybody. And this is something that I realized just in my pursuit of yoga and meditation, is that essentially what I put together in this book is what I feel my own meditation is. And so for people who read the book, what I encourage is, after they've done the exercises, you know, and found some utility to them, that when they encourage themselves to go into their hearts more and more and more, that their own heart will show them their own way to do it. And I'm much more of an advocate to that than saying like, no, my way is the only way, because that is the problem, I think, of the kind of meditation world and the new age kind of spirituality world, is that you know, in the past you've had these like brilliant kind of masters, but they were really hard-headed in the modality that they taught, that it was like the best that there ever was, right? And I don't want to approach it that way, because I think the evolution that we're going through is a realization that we all have our own capability of going into deep meditation, and that's up to us to find out. And so someone like me who teaches meditation, I can only lead to a certain point, where then self-mastery kicks in, and you're responsible for how that self-mastery within yourself takes shape and starts to grow and starts to show you what's the best way going forward from that point.
You know, exposing kids to stuff like this at a young age teaches just has incredible wonders. Studies have been done on this. Schools are now a few schools are starting to adopt this practice of meditation, mindfulness, and this, you know, just calm sense. And there's been incredible results that have yielded out of this. Do you feel that there's like a wave of these children that are coming out here now? I know that they're referred to as like Indigo Children or Rainbow Children or something like that, where they're just basically, I guess, just a reduced version of it would be that they're just high vibe, vibe. They've got high intuition, empathic as hell, and they just seem to latch onto these ideas and seem to be altering the collective consciousness in this youth group. It's very interesting. So, what do you think the next wave looks like after that? These kids come up. Like, what does 20 years look like from now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And the way that I've thought about that is when you look at, say, like our generation of practitioners, like people who are maybe in their late 20s to mid 30s, and they spent the last maybe 10 to 15 years practicing yoga, getting into meditation, all those things, is that there are fundamental physiological, biological, and chemical changes that happen to the body from doing certain yoga practices, Kundalini practices, breathing techniques. And so those fundamental physiological changes are expediting evolution within human consciousness, right? So even though your body kind of relatively looks the same, but if you notice that with like kind of staunch yoga practitioners who are humble, when they get into their older years, they still look super young, right? And it's like, it's amazing. And so what I think is happening is that consciousness is only fixed to a particular timeline due to attachment and focus within the material possession of that timeline. And so when you adopt a yoga and spiritual practice that takes you out of that obsession, you actually expand your consciousness beyond that timeline, and you enter into further reaching timelines that would be like in the future. Even though your body is still in the present, your consciousness is expanding into like greater reaches of space. And so for people to come together and have children when they've done all that work and they're in that expanded consciousness, those children are now at that point, they're born in that consciousness. And so their advancement is now like 10 to 100 fold compared to what the parents did, because the parents had to do all this work to get to that point. Now the children are just born in there, and then suddenly they are just naturally kind of enlightened. They're just naturally advanced. And of course they're still humans, so they're going to have their, whatever they're suffering through and the challenges that they have, but then they're going to have a state of being, and they're going to have an awareness of how to treat each other that older generations don't get, right? So like, say like our parents or, at like kind of like the boomers of, to say it that way. And I think that's just the natural course of our humanity right now. We're on an upswing of ascension, right? So the more spiritual practitioners can actually get together and have children and encourage the growth of humanity in that way, then we're just going to see more and more kids. So in like 10, 20, 30 years from now, there are just going to be children that are like noticeably advanced even more than they are now. Like look at like musical prodigy children, like videos of 5-year-olds that are playing like the craziest Mozart, right?
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something within their capacity to process information that like maybe we didn't have when we were kids, because I look at my niece and she's 3 years old, and I'm like, none of us were like this, like with how just like on top of everything she is and like literally brilliant. It's just so amazing to see. And I remember when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and like just the minor things that I was obsessed with. And that to me is like is an interesting indication of what's happening naturally. And my brother and his wife aren't even spiritual practitioners, so I think there's like a degree of extreme that's happening, right? So if you were to go on the end of just like not spiritual practitioners, but children are being born still in an advanced state, to like really devout practitioners and children like just being geniuses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a shift in priority for the kids based on the time that we live in, which of course this makes sense. Like ours isn't what, our grandparents that went through the Dust Bowl, we didn't have the same experience, right? We weren't presented with the same challenges. And what's interesting about what you said about the speed in which they're able to kind of process information has to do with the amount of information that they have access to, which is an endless amount. Now, what's interesting is like our generation, I mean, we're about the same age, something like that. You're like 10 years younger than me, probably. But we had to, just not, we had to survive. We had to be home when the street light came on. We, all of those things. So we kind of had a half early life, half, internet age or whatever. But them growing up like now, with all of the technology and information access that they have, I think that what they're learning here and the skill that they acquire is discernment. And they're figuring out what is right information and what is not, what resonates with them, the ideas that they want to propagate and the ones that they don't. So they're able to navigate that from that perspective. Now, to what you said about the children that are born to high vibe couples, absolutely. Like this is one of these things, we encourage, we want to see this. So that's awesome. But what I would say is to the kids that aren't and that are introduced to this in school is like an activity. This is one of the cool things, like an alternative to PE or something like that, is they could just be mindful, sit on a yoga mat for a little bit, maybe even participate in yoga. But what I like about it is that of all the things at that age that their subconscious is exposed to that plant the seeds for their rest of their entire life, or that they need to address later before they can move on to their highest self, then as one of those things, this is a damn good alternative. And it's one of those practices that if implemented early enough and mindfully enough, then it does just propagate this incredible experience for these children for the rest of their lives. You hear about huge CEOs and executives that practice this stuff, that are successful by even the Matrix's standards. So I like this concept. I like that we're moving into this, and I completely agree with you, dude.
Yeah. And the thing about meditation is on like a physical level, what it's doing to the brain, what it's doing to the nervous system, right? So if there's a known benefit for adults to meditate, right? And, you have all these kind of apps that can lead you through all types of meditations. And there are reviews and, write-ups of many people saying how it's changed their life. Then you think about a child doing it and starting at such an early age. I can't help but think what kind of changes are going to be, maybe not changes, but what the meditation can do for the growth of that child, right? And so when the neurology is being developed and growing, and the brain is growing, and even just the body is growing, that to be able to maintain certain brain states, so like alpha specifically, that there's going to be like a kind of delayed effect later, so that when they are teens and when they are getting into their 20s, that there's something established in their brains that most kids don't get established because of what affects like regular TV and video games and, like social media use is going to do, because it's the same thing, right? Like there's a kind of meditation that's involved in just looking at your screen and just like zoning into whatever you're watching, right? It's manipulating your brainwave states. So, I find that really, really interesting. And I'm sure there are studies like all over the place of this. And that's what's encouraging to me of, how I think we're actually becoming better humans. That aside from, what's happened over the last 3 years or whatever conflicts there are, that there's something underlining humanity that, say, the elite or whoever don't have control or access to, that is fundamental within the universe, that is upgrading us naturally. And so there's like people like us, and many others who are just aware of that. They're aware, oh, there's something happening in the universe, and I feel call it intuition, whatever, intelligence, that I'm just feeling encouraged to be helpful and to be creative and to put myself out there in a positive, in a impactful way.
You're absolutely right. I could not agree more. And I love, though, about the, again, just with this meditation and kids thing, because it has just such this huge deal. People don't even have to be, it's not even a woo-woo thing. It's just a mindfulness thing that will actually help them in like business and in anything in the success world that they want. It teaches them to be very present. And these are skills that the workforce needs, so that's just another element to it. If somebody's listening to this, if they've made it this far in this awesome conversation, they're like, that's just woo-woo. That part, that they lost me there. It's like when my wife and I watch a superhero movie and all this crazy stuff's going on, and all of a sudden at the end of it, like this guy turns giant and his eyeball pops out and he picks it up and puts it back in his head, and she's like, nah. I'm like, that's where they lost you. It's in this whole movie of all this awesome stuff, and that was it. This is the part of the conversation where they're like, nah, that can't be it. But it's one of those things that is massively beneficial for everyone. So of course, this is always encouraged, and especially if you want to just bond with your kids, just sit there for 5 minutes with your eyes closed and just hang out, and then go back to your screens and stuff. Even small little things like that, just incorporating them as an activity or just a bonding experience for you guys, just to be present and with each other. So I wanted to ask about how you got introduced to psychedelics. What was that like?
So I started smoking weed when I was 12. So drug use has been a part of my life for a majority of my life. You
Canadians do it different, man.
Yeah. And the first time I did mushrooms when I was 16, and I did it with a friend of mine, and we both ate 4 grams. So like my introduction to mushrooms was like borderline a hero dose. And subsequently, like after that with my friends, like, periodically we'd do mushrooms, and it was always like 4 grams. And at that time it was obviously superficial, but then when I started getting into kind of new age spirituality, and I started looking into like what the chakras are, and what like the higher self is, and like esoteric material, I started to think about psychedelic use a little differently, because I started to wonder if there was a connection between what I was learning and what I was experiencing on the psychedelics. And so I started to do some more research on just what is happening in the brain and what these kind of substances are. And so my relationship to, say, like cannabis and mushrooms at the time changed drastically. And what ended up happening is when I was 19 years old, I had one of the most profound experiences of my life concerning just like psychedelics and just generally. And it's still an impactful like memory, and still is like the cornerstone of the work that I do in future life progression because of what I experienced. And it's what drives my theory forward on the nature of consciousness and time and space and stuff. So yeah, and it came out of just my own curiosity of what this stuff is, and yeah, like safe to say, I definitely don't do that much mushrooms anymore. But I think when you're a little bit younger, there's this like edge to being just like courageous, right? Of, oh man, what's going to happen?
It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that young age, that's how I saw it. Now, I mean, I have access to it all the time, blah, blah, blah. But I once a year, maybe twice. And it's not even a crazy, I'll maybe take a heroic dose or 2 in a year, and that's it. So yeah, I keep it chill. I don't microdose or anything like that. I don't feel like that that's necessary for me. But yeah, every now and then, man, we'll have a good ego reset, you know, and it's always nice to connect, and it's very interesting because we live out here in the country, so I've got the best place in the world to do this, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, we just go down to the water, like my horse glows in the moonlight. It's pretty cool. It's really interesting. But so tell me about your DMT experience.
Yeah, so I've done DMT several times, but my first experience was, I think, one of the most profound. And what year was that? I think that was 2014. And I was living in this like beautiful historical home that we called Sunbelly. It was like a kind of co-op collective of 6 of us. And so it was myself and 2 other of my roommates and another one of our friend of ours and another friend who's facilitating the whole journey at her place, because I think her roommate at the time was able to make it because, you know, they got everything that they needed. And this is at a point in my yoga practice where I was fairly deep in it. I was practicing maybe like an hour to 2 hours a day, doing like really strong pranayama breathing techniques and just like asana practice. And, you know, even in my meditations, I'd be meditating for like an hour and a half at a time. And so the energy around me, you know, it was really focused in on all of the like kind of like yoga myths of Krishna and Shiva and all those stories. And so when the night came for us to do the trip, I was the first one to go. And our friend facilitating was like, okay, when you take the hit, just like hold it in as long as you can and then let it out and lay down, and then your trip will begin. So I take my big hit, and it was like the most ghetto way. You know, we had like a 2-liter pop bottle and like
nice,
like basically like a lung, you know, and it was just brutal. Like the smoke was so hot, so I just like burned my throat, and yeah, but then I filled my lungs and held it, and it just like tastes terrible. But as I'm holding my breath and I'm looking out in front of me, I see these like little dots appear, and out of those dots like spiral full on Fibonacci like Mandelbrot sets that are like rainbow iridescent purple, blue, and green and red. And they start pulsing, and I like exhale all the smoke out, and or like whatever's left. And I see all this happening, and I'm just taken aback by it. Right. And I have my eyes open, and I'm like just hallucinating immensely. And I'm sitting, I put my legs in full lotus, and I suddenly feel this like kind of like snap or a crack at the base of my spine. And it's like everything in my legs just like plug in, and this golden white light just bursts open at the base of my spine and shoots up my spine and out my forehead, and a portal opens up. And I'm just like sitting there in awe, and Krishna steps out of the portal. And as Krishna steps out, all of a sudden it's like everything that Krishna is comes out. Like I hear like chimes playing, I hear like people chanting, I see like all this like rainbow like iridescent colors coming off of him. I can smell incense, and I'm just like basking in Krishna. And then he just like goes back into the portal, and it goes away. And I look at my friends, and I was like, holy shit, I just saw Krishna. And they're all like totally weirded out, because my friend like facilitating was like, you know, just like lay down. So they're looking at me like, why isn't he laying down? Like, why is he still looking at us? And I look at my friends, and I could feel each and every single one of them. So I look at my like one roommate, Chris, he's just like totally calm. 100% silent. I'm looking at him. I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. That feels good. I look at my two other friends. They're like noticeably afraid and noticeably like I can feel it in them that they're like worried about something. And I look over to my friend facilitating and I hear her in her mind telling me, lay down, lay down. Why don't you lay down? You should lay down, lay down, lay down. Lay down. And I was like, holy shit. And it like freaked me out. And I laid down and the whole trip changed. Have you ever seen the movie Logan's Run?
Yes.
Okay. So you know the opening scene where he's like in that red room?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like sitting in the chair and and the AI is examining him. So I'm in that room, like 3D physical. I'm in that room. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the Logan's Run like movie. Like, what the fuck? Like full on. And this voice comes in is like, everything you see here is what Hollywood uses to program your brain. So everything, the color, the scene, the actors, the music, the like direction, like absolutely everything is a package that goes into your brain and programs it. And it's like, so you have to be really careful with what you like watch and what you do. And if you are going to watch that stuff, like you have to be really careful. I was like, holy shit. And then I opened my eyes for a second, and to my left and to my right are these like two lamps. And I close them and suddenly they like feel like people. And I open my eyes and I'm like, okay, no, they're just lamps. And I close my eyes and they're like more like people. And I open my eyes. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Because now they're not just lamps. They're like full on like a presence. Next time I close my eyes, I'm on a spaceship. And the two lamps are now like alien humanoid people. And the one to my left has like this little tablet thing that's like just going crazy on it, not even paying attention to me, just like. And then the one to my right is this like woman, and she has all of her attention on me. And it was like the craziest feeling. Like I've never felt that. I've never had anyone like 100% put all of their focus on me. And I was just looking at her, and I'm looking around the spaceship, and we're literally in space. Like I can see out the window, and she just says to me, everything's okay. Don't worry. We're just looking at you. We're just like taking some exams. Everything's fine. You're fine. Nothing's going to happen. Don't worry. And then that just like goes away and everything's black again. And the voice from like the Logan's Run scene comes back, and I'm like just about to end the trip. And I'm like, wait. Who are you? Right? Like I gained some like awareness, and I'm like, where are you? Like you've been guiding me this whole time. You've been talking to me. Where are you? And this voice says, what you see of me is only like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what I am. Because if I showed you the totality of myself, you wouldn't be able to handle it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And it was like, think of it this way. I am hundreds of millions of light years away from you right now. And then as it said that, it like zoomed back, and I was in space with it, and it showed like how far away, but like how big it was and how easy it was to get to me. And then and then it just went away. Oh, there's one part I missed. So after the aliens, and I was just about to interface with it, it starts to tell me you don't have to do drugs anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? And I heard a snap, and I was suddenly at the peak of MDMA, like noticeably. Like I've done MDMA. I know exactly what it feels. I was just like flooded with MDMA, and it snapped again, and I was just like flooded with acid, and it was just completely different. It was just so involuntary, and it snapped again, and it came back, and it was like, see, it's in you. It's in you. And then that's when I was like, wait, who are you? And then it showed me, and then I came back and got up and was like, wow, TMT is amazing.
Dude, that is the coolest story I've ever heard in my life. Like that was the coolest story I've ever heard in my life. That's insane. It just, the way you recounted it. So I want to ask you something, though. So we do discuss UFOs and stuff like that. Non-human intelligence is quite a bit on the show. And there's an interesting observation I've been making just between the hypnotic state, the psychedelic state, especially that DMT, astral travel, and then also the abduction phenomenon, that they're probably all connected, meaning that you may transition your consciousness into an area to where they have access, or where they already are, and where maybe you are, and maybe you're just on a ship somewhere with this stuff going on, and you're just thinking that you're here, you're in some sort of cryo thing, or it's like a travel game or something. I don't know. But let's say that, so my question is when you were on the ship, were you on a table or anything, or were you just hanging out with them as like one of them, as like a guest rather than a subject?
Yeah, I was on a table. It was like a white, like rectangular flat table, and it was like kind of up on an angle, but not really. It was like a soft kind of angle, and I was just laying there, and I still had like my clothes on, and I was just like, yeah, I felt super safe. Like there was nothing there that was like they were taking anything from me or they needed me for something. They were just like, yeah, we're just checking up on you, seeing how things are going, and you'll be back where you came from.
It's like this idea of the hollow earth. Okay, so if you're a subscriber to that idea, there are many entrances to the hollow earth. There's a bunch of them, and so this is kind of one of the things I'm thinking about here is that, number one, entities or non-human intelligences, these aliens, whatever, are connected to all of the high strangeness phenomena like poltergeist activity or the paranormal or Bigfoot or any of that stuff. I feel the investigation that I've done has led me to believe that that's probably pretty accurate. But in this instance now, you've just more confirmed that what you really were was technically abducted, but not technically, because you kind of invited yourself there. You were like, I'm going to unplug for a little bit, go into this dimension, and boom, there they are. Like you were always there, but they kind of not hijack or grab, they just obtain your astral body while you're out there. You're having this experience. And it's funny, though, how you said it immediately switched. So it's almost like, you're like this beacon whenever you're in that. You're not supposed to be there. Like you stand out, you flash like a bright light in the dark. Whenever someone from this place transitions into that place in that state of consciousness, again, this can be facilitated through hypnotic states, psychedelics, all kinds of stuff. So perhaps then this is what happened. Basically you're just kind of snatched up for a little bit, and then you were brought back whenever the time of the DMT in your system brought you back to a baseline, man. That's interesting. Have you ever thought of it like that, like an abduction?
No, I don't think of it as an abduction. I think of it as those are people that I know, and there is a condition placed on human consciousness to not remember or not know who they are, because I've had many experiences of going into ships. And I've had funny ones too. So in 2014, I went to Costa Rica for Envision Festival, and I was just like tenting in the jungle, and I caught wind like early on that you want to just kind of like take care of your tent, take care of your stuff, because there are people who go around at night and just like steal people's shit. So I just did day vibes. So I would wake up at 6 a.m, do my yoga practice, hang out all day, all evening, and then I would go to my tent at around 11 o'clock and go to bed. So one night I'm laying in my tent. It's around like 11:30, and this like epic trance music is playing, like immediately hypnotic. Like I don't even know how this happened. I was just laying in my bed, and suddenly I'm just like, I kind of go numb, but I'm not going numb. I just like immediately leave my body because of this music is just so hypnotic. And I find myself just like floating up into space, and I see myself like floating higher and higher and higher, and I just like float right into a ship. It was like the strangest thing. I just like was standing there, and I was in this ship, and I see people like walking around and doing their thing, and all at once everyone stops and looks at me, and this one person's like, he's not supposed to be here.
Yes.
And I was like, oh shit. And then they sent me back to my body. They were like, he's not supposed to be here. He's not supposed to be here. And it was just like, boom. And I just like hit my body and passed out. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, holy shit, what happened last night? And I had to like recount. And I was like, oh my God, I went into a ship and I hit my body and I immediately passed out.
Dude, again, incredible story. So, did you phase through the ship, or was a door open and then you went into the ship?
I went right through it, like right from the bottom. I just like came up and then I was just like in it, and it was still like, it wasn't so solid. Like it still felt kind of fuzzy, you know, like
it was still rendering.
Yeah.
Or like the spell was being wearing off a little bit, the spell that you're under now that keeps you in this idea or this state, this reality, this illusion. So, you know, it reminds me of that Truman Show, you know, that movie, whenever he goes into a bank or something like that and the elevator doors open and people get on, but they don't. And he turns around and then a back opens to it, and it's like the whole backstage area and people are hanging out eating food and stuff like that, and he comes running back in and sees that. That's kind of like what it feels like, and they're like, oh shit, and they kind of, you know, fix everything real quick as to not give away what's really going on. That's fascinating, dude. It's like this thinned veil, this consciousness slip, you know. It's like this this ability to just transmute what's actually happening here and see it, and then even the entities on the other side that seem to be not only completely aware of it, but kind of running it or in on it somehow. They're surprised to see you. They're like, oh shit, you know, he's here. What are you doing? And then they have the power to cast you back. It's wild because you hear this in abduction cases as well, that whoever they are, have just some sort of power over your motor skills and your ability to move and to do anything but be paralyzed. So they can turn you off, you know, physically. They can just switch you off and you have no control over this. So it's interesting. It does seem to be happening on a pretty damn deep level. And I think your experiences are fascinating though, dude.
Yeah. And, you know, ever since I was a teenager, I was fascinated by UFOs, and my dad and I would always watch all these like crazy kind of like History Channel, Discovery Channel stuff. And, the thing that I never allowed myself to get into is like the seriousness, you know, sometimes you hear the UFO stories and they're really serious about it. And the thing that I learned from interacting with these beings, just like through dreams and psychedelics and stuff like that, was to just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Is not to take it so serious. And I think having fun with it is what actually enables you to have more experiences with it. And that it's so spontaneous that sometimes it takes doing something pretty far out to get to that experience, right? Like when I went to Costa Rica, I was in the middle of university and I went during like reading week. And I remember I just went by myself, and I remember being on the plane to Costa Rica, sitting there being like, oh, fuck, how am I going to get to the festival? I don't speak Spanish. I don't know where I'm going. And this like guy with dreads is like sitting 2 seats across from me or beside me. And he just looks at me and he's like, hey, man, are you going to Envision? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he's like, do you speak Spanish? I was like, nope. And he's like, you're here by yourself. And I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, okay, you're going to have to come with me because there's no way you're going to successfully. So this like guy, like just like totally saved me and like took me on this adventure. He like took me to like Orosi, which is like this little tiny like village in like inland Costa Rica, where his friend like built like a hostel and a hotel. And I just remember being in this guy's like souped up fucking crazy truck, driving up this mountain, smoking weed that he just like grew himself, and suddenly getting a panic attack, being like, wait, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah.
And why am I in a truck? And why am I not studying for stats? And why am I in Costa Rica? And we're just like driving up this mountain to go check out their Earth ships. And then just like, he's like, yo, check out, he's like, yo, smoke this joint. It's a totally different strain. And I smoke that one. And it's just like all of that paranoia goes away. And I'm just like, whoa, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like driving up these like mountains. And then this fellow, I think his name is Josh. Yeah. Just like helped me get to the festival and was like, all right, man, I'll see you later. And then just like disappeared. And I like didn't ever see him.
That's amazing. That's one of those spirit guide things. You know, that's one of those interactions. It's divine timing, of course, and that's badass, man. Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. Well, I think that we're going to wrap it on this one, man. But I've really, really enjoyed having you on, dude. You're welcome, of course, any damn time. Before we go, I want to shout out Andre Mitty for sending me this shirt, Ascension of the Chessman. Here. There you go. Video
Nice.
audience there. Yeah, no, it's very comfortable. In fact, I'm going to link it down in the show notes next to Alt Media. And of course, I'm going to link the Union of the Unwanted that you and I met on so that they could see why I had to have you on, dude. But of course, this conversation is going to be reason enough. So, dude, I can't thank you enough, man. I really, really do appreciate your time. Like I said, brother, you are welcome anytime. You're fascinating.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much for having me. I love telling my stories because these experiences are just kind of tucked away in my brain. And sometimes I forget how crazy and how intense they are. So, yeah.
We have fascinating stories. And so next time I'll have to ask you about the second time you did DMT. But we'll save that for next time, man. That's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, there's ayahuasca in there too. So we have lots to talk about. Yeah, for sure.
See, incredible fella. I told you. Thank you so much, Yogi Zorananda, for your time. Make sure that you guys check out the show notes for his book, Future Life Progression, as well as a few of the reference links that we referenced, the Alt Media United, which is the podcast collective that we are both a part of, as well as the Union of the Unwanted episode where Yogi and I met, the spiritual episode, which features such favorites as Christopher the Astro Medium was on that one, Amy Belair was there, and many, many others. So y'all make sure you check that one out as well. It's linked down there, so check it. Also, go on ahead, and if you would like to expand your experience with us here on the show, you can do so at expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is where links to all of the stuff like socials and merchandise and Rokfin for premium content and a bunch of other cool content creators are over there as well. So make sure that you guys check that out if that's something that you're into. Other than that, guys, go out into this beautiful, beautiful place and y'all pick up a piece of litter. Be nice to everybody that you come across. Open doors, smile at folks. It's not hard. If you want to up the game a little bit as far as sending out a good vibration, you can do so by buying somebody in line around you a coffee or a meal or just something small, guys. It's easy, but it makes a massive difference. While you're out there kicking ass at the vibrational ascension game, go ahead and get out of that left-hand lane. And of course, and as always, y'all go out into this beautiful place, whatever the hell it is, and y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.